Hi, my name's David Holt. I'm the Emerging Technologies Law Librarian here at Santa Clara Law. This is the screencast on Introduction to Practice Materials, Forms, and Jury Instructions. We're going to start this screencast with an introduction to the various types of forms that you have at your disposal in legal practice. I've broken these down into four broad categories. The first are transactional forms, and so those would be forms dealing with business transactions, estate planning, family law, real estate transactions. Procedural forms are going to be your trial motions, your motions in limine, your post-trial motions, appellate motions, enforcement of judgments, your pleading, summons, venues, parties, etc., etc. We also have model forms, which model forms are frequently used for creating interrogatories or for contract drafting. And then we have checklists, which technically aren't a type of form, although you'll frequently see them in form books and other materials that contain forms in addition to other practice materials. Checklists include elements of an action, and there's a special set called Proof of Facts that contains a number of checklists that we're going to go into. Form books are collated and published in various ways. We have general form books, which general form books would include West forms or the federal forms from AmJur, American Jurisprudence. We also have forms that are devoted to particular jurisdictions, such as Rutter Group. Civil Procedure Before Trial contains a number of forms. Remember that Rutter Group is one of our publishers of practice materials for California state law. There's also forms by subject area, such as environmental law forms, family law forms, and so on. And then we have what are called code forms. And code forms, as the name would imply, are forms that are key to particular code sections. West publishes a set of California code forms with commentaries. That's a very important source of code forms in California. So let's dive into California forms here. The first one would be those that are published by West. And so we have, again, California Code Forms with practice commentary. West also publishes forms in California Civil Practice and Elements of an Action. There's also a publication that West produces on California Judicial Council forms, which we're going to go into Judicial Council forms later on in this screencast. You don't need to use the West product to access these. These are available for free on the California Judicial Council website. There's a number of other forms that are published by West. For a complete list, I recommend that you look at our class website under supplemental materials. So for the module for this week on practice materials, I have links to an excellent research guide from USF Law that dives into California practice guides and form books, and it's fairly comprehensive, and I really recommend that you go through this to look at to see what's available here in California. We have a wealth of secondary materials in California, given that we're the largest state in the country, and there's a number of sources of form books in California. USF has thoughtfully put this guide together that's fairly comprehensive. We also have a guide from UC Davis that I've added here under supplemental materials. That's a PDF. That's also fairly comprehensive in terms of its coverage of California practice materials. It gives you an overview of the major publishers of California legal materials, which again, this is a list that you're going to have to memorize. Bancroft Whitney, CEB. Remember, CEB is its own platform. It's owned by the University of California. Matthew Bender, which is available on Lexis. Rutter Group, which is owned by West. And then Witkins, which is licensed on both platforms. And so you can access Witkins from either Lexis or Westlaw. Technically, Witkins is not a practice publisher. This has all the listings from CEB, which CEB produces a very large list of California practice materials. The advantage with CEB is that they're often more narrow than those that are published by the other California practice publishers. And so you'll see practice materials published by CEB that will address a narrow area of legal practice that does not get the same coverage in other publishers. I wish I had some examples here to show. Well, creating your discovery plan, enforcing civil money judgments, handling subpoenas. There's ones that are on just on neighbor disputes, which is great. And if that's a topic that you need to address in practice, CEB is excellent for a lot of your California property disputes, real property transactions. There's a large list here to go through. Bancroft Whitney is another publisher of California practice materials. They're really known for publishing Miller and Starr. Miller and Starr is considered the Bible for California real estate practice, and there are forms that are included with Miller and Starr set on real property, and they have a separate set just on real estate forms. Again, CEB, large list of forms that are available from CEB. And Matthew Bender. Remember that this is owned by Lexis, so Matthew Bender is only going to be accessible on Lexis, just as Rudder is only going to be accessible on Westlaw. Your firm may have only a contract with one vendor and not the other, and so you need to familiarize yourself with the practice materials that are going to be accessible to you in your firm. California Judicial Council forms are published by the California Judicial Council. They're authorized under a California Government Code section to mandate that specific forms are used for various transactions. You can see on the lower left of the first page of the form whether the form is adopted, meaning that it's mandatory, or whether it's approved, meaning that it's optional. The California Judicial Council forms are available on Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg. However, you do not need to use a commercial vendor to access those materials. The California Judicial Council forms are available on their website. If you do a Google search for California Judicial Council, it will be the first result. Okay, some sources of federal or national forms. We're going to start with Wright and Miller, Federal Practice and Procedure. This is considered a Bible for federal practice and procedure. It's a 31-volume set, and it includes various aspects of federal civil, criminal, and appellate procedure. Generally, this is going to be the first source that you will look at for federal procedure questions. West Federal Forms is a national form set. This would be a general form book, and so it includes forms on a wide array of topics. Moore's Federal Practice is going to be the rough equivalent to West Federal Forms that's published by Lexis, by Matthew Bender. It is also a 31-volume loose leaf set. Bender's Forms of Discovery is published by Matthew Bender, and this is an excellent source for model interrogatories. And so if you are trying to create an interrogatory, you can look for examples in Bender's Forms of Discovery. American Jurisprudence Proof of Facts is a checklist practice material. It will provide sample testimony and another analysis to assist in proving contested facts. It also includes some model interrogatories and other forms. Causes of Action. This is published by, this is available on Westlaw. I don't know if it's published by Westlaw or one of their, it's licensed to them. But this, I love Causes of Action. If you find a Causes of Action entry that's relevant for your research task, it's often an invaluable source. It's going to identify the various elements for the cause of action, and it includes a very substantive overview of the area of law. Okay, next we're going to dive into jury instructions. Why even bother looking at jury instructions? Well, I love jury instructions for a number of reasons. I recommend jury instructions particularly to law students, as jury instructions are written to be read to jurors, not to be read by fellow attorneys. And so the language that is used in jury instructions is often much more accessible than what you'll find in other legal materials, particularly practice materials. And they provide a very succinct and concise overview of a particular area of law. They don't try to hide the ball from you. They list the law in plain black and white, as clear as they can. There are two major sources of jury instructions in California. We have those that are prepared by West Committee on Jury Instructions. These are actually the deprecated jury instructions that used to be written by the Judicial Council of California. They've now been subsumed, in essence, by West and are updated by West. There are California Jury Instructions Criminal, which is called CalJIC, and then California Jury Instructions Civil, which is called BAJI. Then there's jury instructions that are written by the Judicial Council of California itself. There's one for civil, CACI, and then one for criminal called CalCrim. For federal jury instructions, we have Federal Jury Practice and Instructions, which is prepared by the Federal Judicial Center. It's available on West. And then if you are on Lexis, there's an equivalent set called Modern Federal Jury Instructions. Okay, contract drafting tools is an area that doesn't get much attention during your first year of law. In fact, you probably did not hear the issue raised at all, but it's an important part of legal practice. Locating model documents can save you a lot of time and effort. There are sample agreements available on Westlaw. Much of these sample agreements, and this is going to be true for all of the platforms, Westlaw, Lexis, and Bloomberg, are derived from SEC filings. Publicly owned companies need to submit documentation to the SEC, and included with that are a number of various reports from which sample agreements have been extracted. There are also other sources for sample agreements that Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg have acquired. There's a database on Westlaw called Simply Sample Agreements that will include a wide array of practice areas. You can dive right into EDGAR filings. Now, EDGAR is the electronic filing system for the SEC. With EDGAR filings, you can locate agreements, contracts, and documents that were included in those SEC filings. You can search EDGAR on Westlaw, Lexis, or Bloomberg, or on the EDGAR website itself. Westlaw has a set called Practical Law, which is an excellent source of practice materials. It includes a lot of templates, workflow tools, checklists. The problem with Westlaw Practical Law, this was actually a UK company originally that Westlaw purchased a number of years ago. It's horribly, horribly expensive and remains horribly expensive. This is something that you are unlikely to encounter unless you're working in a very large firm. The last I heard, the retail price for a Practical Law module was over $100,000 a year. We have access to all of the modules. Because of course they're giving us a huge academic discount for this. But I encourage you to take a look at Practical Law to at least familiarize yourself with the materials here and to take advantage of it, because this is something that you're probably unlikely to see after law school. There are a few places on Lexis to look for standard contract clauses. You can look at the BNA and CCH set. That would be true for taxation, securities, labor and employment, environmental law. There's also model agreements for corporate counsel and AmJur legal forms for business contracts. And again, you can search exhibits attached to SEC filings on Lexis, just as you can with Westlaw or Bloomberg. Bloomberg has an excellent contract drafting module, which I strongly recommend that you check out. It is called Dealmaker. This is really one of the big strengths for Bloomberg. Dealmaker includes documents used by law firms in actual transactions. You can search by the type of agreement, the law firm, the industry, the document type. Excellent source. The nice thing about Dealmaker is that it also has a clause search. And so you can search for a particular clause within these various documents if that's what you're looking for. And you can even select more than one model agreement and compare the clauses, the relevant clauses, with each other to see how the language is similar or how it differs. It's an excellent tool for contract drafting. Okay, I want to go spend a little time on discussing case management tools. This is something that if you're going into a large firm, you may not have any control over. However, many of you will be going into smaller boutique firms, into solo practice, and you may actually have some discretion over the case management tools that your firm will be using. CaseMap is a case management tool designed by Lexis. It's rather expensive. However, it's a great tool to organize facts, issues, and players in a case. You can upload all of your relevant documents into CaseMap and keep all of that organized. There's also a corollary time management tool from Lexis to help you with your billing. Westlaw has a tool called ProLaw, which is the competitor to Lexis's CaseMap. If you're working in a smaller firm, however, you're probably going to be using some other lower cost vendors for this. The case management systems from both Lexis and Westlaw are rather expensive. If you're in a small or medium-sized firm, you're much more likely to use a product produced by one of these secondary vendors. So Abacus Law, Tabs 3, Clio are some of the major case management and billing management tools that you're likely to have at your disposal.